An adventure that started with just a few scraps in a cave once reached the pinnacle of human technology. These aren't just armor. We're talking about a grand legacy where fear transforms into courage and courage transforms into intelligence. The 5 I'm about to discuss are reflections of Tony Stark's soul. Some represent his anger, some his fear, and some definitely his genius. These aren't just engineering marvels. They were the result of lessons learned from a hero's mistakes and his sacrifices. Now, let's dive deep into Tony Stark's 5 armors together. This video will feature details about Tony Stark's armors that have never been examined or shown before. If you're ready, let's begin. Number 5, Mark IV. We're starting with the Mark IV. If you remember, we saw it in Iron Man 2. Tony Stark, as you know, is a hero who operates with the mindset that even if he makes the best of something, he can always make it better. That's why, even though the Mark III was beautiful and well-equipped, he created this armor thinking he could do better. At this point, you might ask, if it's not that different from the Mark III, what made it special? The Mark IV is tougher, faster, stronger than the Mark III, more equipped despite having similar capabilities, and most importantly, more durable. And I have to say, if the Mark IV and Mark III got into a fight, the Mark IV would probably turn the Mark III into scrap. By the way, should we do a ranking like this? If Tony Stark's armors fought each other, which armor would beat which? Should we start a series? Please write in the comments. I take all comments seriously. Moving on, we can say the Mark IV had a very high battery and power level. But was it perfect? Not exactly, because what happened next would completely change Tony's approach to armor design. Number 4, Mark 39 Starboost. By the way, Tony was going through a full-blown existential crisis. If you're watching a scene with Tony Stark and he's having an existential crisis or going into depression, or something causes him to have panic attacks and fear, believe me, later in the scene, Tony Stark will definitely create a very equipped and perfect armor. That's exactly what happened here. If you remember, in the Battle of New York, when Tony went through that portal into space and nearly died, he went into serious depression, panic attacks, and everything came back to him, and suddenly he became obsessed with one thing. He started making only armors, preparing a separate plan for every possibility, and ultimately, the Mark 39 Starboost enters the scene. This armor was designed for one nightmare. What if I get stuck in space again? What does Tony do? He builds an armor that can operate in the vacuum of space, keep him alive, and still kick ass. So basically, space-ready Iron Man. And honestly, peak, I have trauma, so I'm going to science my way out of it energy. But here's what nobody talks about. Iron Man 3 isn't just an action movie. It's literally Tony's nervous breakdown told through 42 different armors. Each armor represents a fear, a weakness, a what-if scenario that keeps him up at night. And if that's intense, just wait until you see what he does next. Number 3, Mark 43. Now things get interesting. The Mark 43 is basically the polished version of the Mark 42. Remember the Mark 42? The modular armor that could fly to Tony piece by piece. Great concept, terrible execution. That thing fell apart more than my New Year's resolutions. But Tony doesn't give up. After New York, after dealing with extremists, after almost dying multiple times, he finally cracks the code. The Mark 43 takes everything the 42 tried to be and actually delivers. Fast? Check. Space capability? Check. Rapid deployment? Check. Does it stay together during a fight? Finally, yes. By the time Age of Ultron rolls around, the Mark 43 becomes Tony's go-to. This armor is the bridge between I'm traumatized and making random armors and I'm actually thinking strategically now. Think about it. This is the first armor since New York that doesn't let him down at critical moments. That's character development right there. But was it the most powerful armor he ever made? Not even close, because the next one makes the Mark 43 look like training wheels. Number 2, Mark 38 Igor. Meanwhile, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the Hulk in the room, the Mark 38 Igor. And yes, it was specifically designed to fight the Hulk. After New York, Tony had a terrifying thought. What if Bruce loses control? So naturally, he builds an armor 5 times more powerful than a standard Iron Man suit. Because that's a totally normal response to workplace anxiety. Igor is massive. We're talking construction site on steroids level power. Multiple power amplification modes, reinforced plating, and enough raw strength to potentially go toe-to-toe with the Hulk himself. Would Igor actually beat the Hulk? We'll never know. It got destroyed in Iron Man 3 before it could have its moment. Classic Marvel move, right? Show us something incredible, then blow it up before it gets its moment. But here's the real genius. Every armor in Iron Man 3 represents a specific fear. Igor represents Tony's fear of his own friends, of the Avengers turning on him, of Bruce becoming a threat instead of an ally. Heavy stuff hiding behind a giant metal suit. And to make things worse, Tony learned from Igor's destruction. He took the concept and upgraded it, but that's a story for another day. Still, was Igor the most powerful? There's one more, and it's the one that started everything. Number 1, Mark 6. And just when you thought we were done, we're going back to the moment that changed everything. The Mark 6, the armor that saved Tony's life. Literally. Here's the context. Tony was dying. The palladium arc reactor keeping him alive was also poisoning him. The man had weeks, maybe days left. So what does he do? He discovers a new element, synthesizes an entirely new energy source, and builds the Mark 6 around it. This is the moment Tony Stark becomes Tony Stark. The Mark 6 wasn't just an upgrade, it was a revolution. New core, new power output, new capabilities. This was the first armor with repulsor-based laser technology. The first armor that wasn't slowly killing him. The first armor that represented hope instead of desperation. In terms of raw potential, the Mark 6 left everything before it in the dust. The energy output of the new arc reactor alone put it in a different league. But here's what nobody wants to talk about. The Mark 6 represents Tony's rebirth. Every armor after this was built by a man who knows he can't just throw money at problems. He has to innovate, adapt, and think beyond the armor. That's why the Mark 6 isn't just the most powerful armor on this list, it's the most important one. Was it perfect? Number. But it became the foundation for everything that came after. From the Hulkbuster to the nanotech armor in Infinity War. And here's the real lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't the newest, biggest, or flashiest. Sometimes it's the one that changes the game entirely. So here's my question for you. Which armor do you think should have been number 1? Am I sleeping on the Mark 85 from Endgame? Should the Hulkbuster have been on here? Write your ranking in the comments because I guarantee someone's going to lose it over the Mark 50 not being on this list. And if you're still thinking, wait, what about? Don't worry, part 2 is coming. Because we haven't even touched on the Model Prime, the Godbuster, or the comic book armors that make these MCU suits look like toys. Hit that subscribe button if you want the deep dive. Because Tony Stark's arsenal, we're just getting started.